In a way that's very appropriate for a cross-country road trip across an alien-infested United States, Overland is a harsh and unforgiving game. That's especially true when you're learning the rules of its turn-based tactics and tightly limited inventory management, none of which it tells you about and many of which will punish you severely for not knowing them. That learning experience is a big part of the charm and challenge of this style of roguelike adventure, though Overland has a habit of pushing things a little too far by presenting the illusion that you can recover when it's really just wasting your time. When you start on the East Coast with 2 random characters, one of whom might be a dog, things are relatively normal, except an endless horde of these creatures burst up from the ground whenever you make noise. Things get way weirder the further west you travel, and random noises and events give it a creeping feeling of doom, as though we're not actually in a post-apocalypse, but mid-apocalypse. The low-detail art style works surprisingly well for this. What makes Overland stand out mechanically is that it's not actually about tactical combat, it's about avoiding combat. Because there's no defeating the enemy and no stealth, every map is a smash and grab. Gather up survivors and as much gas and gear as you can and make your escape before you're overwhelmed. It's an interesting approach that made me think differently about when to fight and when to flee than I do in most games. There's not a ton of story along the way, aside from a few special locations. The interactions between your randomized party members that happen between stops are basic and repetitive recountings of what just happened, so not much is revealed and there's not much depth to help you get attached to anybody. Most of the story happens in your head. It's the random special abilities and perks that I got attached to, like when a character can make 3 moves instead of 2, or can loot without spending an action point. Especially if you upgrade them with a backpack and some gear you find along the way, a good team is absolutely key to surviving in the later areas. Oh yes, that applies to dogs too. Other skills are less useful because they're extremely situational and some are negative traits, so those companions are the first to be left behind when I don't have room in whatever car I happen to have at the time. Those range from the 2-person pickup to the 5-passenger van, so your population cap is effectively randomized by what vehicles you happen to find. That can create some memorable moments if an abandoned ally comes back for revenge later. And there are other fun surprises in here too. As with virtually all roguelikes, there are situations that seem pretty unfair and unsurvivable and can end your run out of nowhere. Especially during night missions where you're basically blind if you don't have the right equipment or if you don't have enough gas to get anywhere. I don't have a problem with that, though Overland rubs a bit too much salt in the wound. If your car is destroyed, you can escape on foot and you're given a chance to get a new car and carry on. But I've never pulled it off, because there are so many enemies on these maps that it's a waste of time to try and fuel up a new ride and escape. Especially if you're already wounded. Good luck. My biggest issue with Overland, though, is the interface. There are issues with it taking too many clicks to do basic things, but it's really bad at showing you who is selected and, most annoyingly, whether you're going to walk or drive to where you click when you're in a car. And because the undo move button only works in certain situations, this is the #1 cause of enraging misclick-related deaths in my roughly 30 hours of playing Overland. So let me tell you something that Overland doesn't. You can enable the ability to restart almost any level at the cost of disabling certain achievements. Sure, it lowers the stakes dramatically, but unless you're okay with learning everything the hard way on each first encounter, constantly being forced to try again from an early area as a result, you should definitely turn this on for your first few runs. The early game doesn't have enough variety to keep it fun for that many restarts. Overland's increasingly weird apocalypse and clever approach to tactical survival make it an interesting take on the roguelike road trip genre. A decent variety of perks and upgrades make certain party members feel indispensable and others feel very disposable, though they don't have a ton of personality beyond that. Its controls and interface could be a lot better though, and some no-win situations are drawn out a lot longer than they should be. For more permadeath roguelikes, check out our reviews of Ancestors, The Humankind Odyssey, and Rad. And for everything else, stick with IGN.